For 3 years, I'd been exploring and recording forsaken spots when our group stumbled upon Clearwater Ridge. That seems like the ideal spot to kick off the tale. Our YouTube channel went by the name Lost Spaces, admittedly a bit highbrow in hindsight, but it was Miguel's idea, and the rest of us agreed it fit. A team of 5 kept things running. Miguel took charge of the filming gear. He's my roommate, a solid dude who handles tech like nobody else I know. Malene handled the post-production, shaping my off-the-cuff voiceovers into engaging videos folks would stick around for. Timothy managed the groundwork, sifting through deeds and dusty news clippings until his vision blurred. Nicole oversaw our online presence and fielded viewer feedback, which had to be the toughest gig in the bunch. We kicked off modestly. Derelict filling stations, weathered barns, everyday relics like that. Not thrilling stuff, but audiences enjoyed seeing us wander those sites and uncovering the tales of what led to their neglect. The subscriber count climbed steadily. Not viral fame, but solid enough for upgraded cameras and longer outings to remote areas. I was drawn to the gig. There's an eerie pull in deserted structures, all that abandoned ambition lingering in the air. Folks poured their dreams into creating them, expecting permanence, right? Then reality intervened, folks bailed, and the remnants of those aspirations decayed. Miguel often teased me for overthinking it, but that depth is what hooked me, along with our knack for pulling it off well. Timothy unearthed Clearwater Ridge on a Tuesday morning in early October. I was munching on breakfast flakes and scanning messages when his call came through. "You have to check this out," he blurted, skipping any chit-chat. That was classic Timothy firing on all cylinders. "What have you got?" A shuttered ski spot, Clearwater Ridge Resort, vacant since January 1996. As he spoke, I accessed our communal drive. He'd uploaded the land deeds already, faded scans that screamed multiple bad copies. The site sprawled across 400 acres in the Cascade Range, roughly 2 hours' drive from home. Records indicate it halted operations smack in the middle of ski season, Timothy added. No insolvency paperwork, no explanation given. Business as usual one moment, then poof, staff vanished. Odd for sure. It gets stranger. He mentioned online threads buzzing with tales of folks vanishing nearby, warped time experiences, the usual spooky lore. I flipped through the files. Construction dated to 1987, with 9 years of runs before the shutdown. Tax filings showed a Portland-based shell corporation still held title, though they dodged payments for more than 10 years, I remarked. He conceded. Miguel strolled into the kitchen as I kept poring over it. He snatched my cereal container and gave it a rattle to gauge the remnants. Timothy's hooked us a ski resort. Nice. Location? I recited the coordinates. He gave a nod and fixed himself a serving, the type who stays chill until the action starts. The online chatter was predictable. Trekkers reporting blacked-out hours by the property, overnight campers catching whispers from vacant structures. Some dude insisted on spotting glows in the panes after dark, only for it to go pitch black and derelict up close. Total web fluff. Empty sites spark wild yarns, turning simple break-ins into epic enigmas. Still, the resort checked out as genuine. Aerial shots revealed a central hotel, outlying cabins, cable cars snaking uphill, all intact, merely lifeless. "How steep's the climb?" I asked Timothy. 8 miles via a service trail. Bumpy, no doubt, but the SUV'll manage." I pinged the docs to our team thread. Malene chimed in quick, probing the liability angle. Nicole quizzed if it was a day trip feasible. Miguel dropped a simple thumbs up. The ownership docs noted 2 failed sales attempts post-closure. Both pulled back. No clear standing now, which often signals total indifference from authorities. "When's the plan?" Timothy inquired. "This Saturday afternoon slot, assuming schedules align." "Want deeper dives?" "Yeah, but skip the wild plots." He chuckled. "Just the dry facts. Licenses, deed timelines, basics." Once we disconnected, I lingered on the images. The primary building was massive, easily 60-plus guest rooms, crafted in that 80s wood and rock aesthetic meant to evoke cozy wilderness, the sort of setup primed for thriving. Miguel plopped down opposite me, spoon in hand. Quote 18, quote 19. People tend to spot what they're hoping for in an empty spot like that deep in the woods. Their minds just invent the rest. Miguel gave a shrug. He wasn't really doubting it, more just down to earth. As long as we snagged solid video, he figured, haunted or not didn't matter much. The days until then passed without incident. I stuck to my day job, Miguel tackled a few side gigs editing clips, and the team kept up their routines. Still, the ski area stayed on my mind. I pored over those overhead shots and skimmed Timothy's latest notes. By Thursday, he'd dug up extra info. Things were solid money-wise right before shutdown. No gripes from visitors, no hazards flagged, nothing glaring. Come late January, employees simply quit appearing. The owners pushed on solo for a bit, then threw in the towel and secured the gates. "Sounds like a worker beef to me," Malene suggested as we gathered Friday night to map out the excursion. "Some union hassle, maybe?" "In 1996? Timothy shot back. "Resort crews weren't unionized or anything close then. Might have been lousy bosses, office drama, anything." Nicole was thumbing through her feed the whole chat, popping up on Reddit about this spot some fresh posts. Like what? Mostly trail discussions, folks wondering about the zone. A few dudes mentioned hunting for it, but looping back on that service route. I double-checked the forecast already. Saturday promised sunny skies. Temps hovering in the 50s. Prime for shooting. The dirt track could be bumpy, sure, but Timothy's Honda cleared okay. "Let's roll out midday," I proposed. "That way we've got hours to reach it and return before nightfall." "How much time for the shoot?" Miguel wondered. "Maybe 2 hours. It'll hinge on what turns up." The weekend morning unfolded like routine. I stuffed my filming kit in a bag, tossed in waters and energy bars. Miguel stowed his gear in Timothy's ride. The group trickled in by 11:30, geared up for a straightforward outing. Timothy had maps and printouts ready, figuring signals would fade in the peaks. Nicole packed her power bank. Malene lugged her computer, handy for quick edits, right there if needed. "All set?" I checked. Nods all around. Timothy fired up the engine. The trip into the hills was nothing special at first. Freeway jams, then twisty lanes past fields turning to woods. We fueled up in Millfield, roughly 40 minutes shy of the service path kickoff. "Final snack stop," Nicole announced, ducking into the shop. It had that small town vibe. Elderly clerk with his paper, a handful of regulars grabbing Joe and scratch-offs. We blended right in, no stairs. Resuming, the terrain ramped up, towering pines, sharp inclines, that high-altitude hush with pressure shifts in your head. Timothy tracked the nav to the branch for the service road. "Here's the spot," he noted, halting by a weathered board marked FS 471. It was loose stones and soil, tight for passing if somewhat headed down. He dropped to a low gear, and we began the ascent. 8 miles seems short, but these paths drag. We inched at 15 miles per hour tops, swerving ruts and boulders. Foliage closed in higher up, shading everything. "Nav holding?" I queried. Timothy checked his screen. "Yep, though bars are dropping. Around mile 6, a corroded barrier swung aside. No postings, no alerts, just forgotten iron ajar. The path pressed on. Quote _21, Timothy announced. I scanned the side glass for structures or open ground. Just endless woods. Then the track bent past a crest, and bam, the resort unfolded in the broad basin ahead. Quote 22, Miguel muttered. Way larger than the pics implied. The core building anchored the site. 4 levels of wood and rock under a tin green top. Outbuildings dotted nearby. Lodges for stays. Utility spots, maybe a eatery or meeting hall. Lifts climbed the rise beyond, steel posts and lines slicing the trees. That's quite the setup, Malene observed. Timothy eased into the former lot, pavement split with sprouts, but clearly once a parking zone. We paused, peering at it all via the glass. Odd to finally lay eyes on it after a week of pixels, grand yet compact somehow. "All right," I said. "Time to explore." We crossed the parking area toward the central lodge, our boots grinding over loose stones and fallen foliage. The structure appeared sturdy, incredibly sturdy. 4 levels constructed from wood and rock, topped with a green metal roof showing no signs of corrosion. Sunlight from the afternoon glinted off the windows, their clear panes mirroring the woods at our backs. That ought to have been our initial clue that something felt off. Had essentially claimed the upper level as their own, had essentially claimed the upper level as their rookery. 2 decades plus of exposure to the elements, intruders, and wildlife. Structures don't simply remain pristine after all that. Yet this one had. Miguel hurried forward to the primary doorway, a pair of deep green double doors, sturdy timber accented by brass grips. I anticipated he'd give them a shake, perhaps spot a fractured pane we could slip through. Our typical approach for these explorations. But instead, he knelt and fished an item from his coat pocket. Nicole remarked. She was capturing him on her cell phone. Miguel replied. He kept his focus on the latch. Timothy chuckled. That's either clever or against the law. Only unlawful if we're busted, Miguel countered. The mechanism gave a click. He rose and twisted the knob. The door eased inward smoothly. No creaky joints or resistance. I assumed Miguel was simply being meticulous. We always sought proper entry points initially. Unlocked entrances, cracked glass, breaches in barriers. Still, if skirting guidelines meant a solid segment, that was our ethical call. We entered a foyer that left my mind reeling in confusion. It all seemed out of place. Not damaged out of place, not trashed out of place, merely incorrect. The space was arranged as if visitors could arrive at any moment. A deep red couch positioned before a rock hearth with firewood piled nearby. Periodicals spread neatly on a low table. A pair of lounge chairs oriented to face the view. Every detail meticulously placed as if a decorator had just finished that day. Yet a layer of dust blanketed it all. A heavy, uniform coating that suggested years of accumulation. I approached one of the chairs and trailed my finger over the arm. The powder lifted cleanly, revealing a stark line on the underlying cloth. The piece itself was immaculate, however. No tears in the covering, no marks, no rodent waste or avian droppings or the typical debris from deserted structures. Malene commented. She was using her camera, scanning the area deliberately. Nicole had reached the reception counter, a broad oak barrier spanning the wall. Overhead, a board displayed numerous keys dangling from labeled pegs. Genuine brass keys, not the modern plastic swipe cards. Room 207, Nicole announced. 212-215. She turned to the group. All present, as if no one had ever departed. I moved to her side. The surface bore the identical dust mantle, but beneath lay a leather-covered visitor log, a stand with 3 writing instruments, and a compact desk planner. That planner twisted my gut oddly, the type with a single month displayed. January 1996. A red ink circle highlighted one day. January 23rd. A precise loop around the figure like noting a due date or scheduled event. Take a look, I suggested, indicating the page. Timothy bent forward, fiddling with his spectacles. January 23rd. Likely the shutdown date. They probably noted the final shift and exited, he guessed. But that crimson mark nagged at me. Excessively tidy, purposefully chosen, as though the individual foresaw the precise conclusion. I began recording with my primary lens, capturing broad views of the entryway. We'd splice in voiceovers and tunes during post-production. For the moment, I aimed to record it all prior to venturing further inside. That's when Nicole let out a sharp intake of breath. Quote 29 she uttered. She stood near a modest nook by the panes, with a couple of seats and a circular surface. 2 mugs rested there, plain white porcelain edged with brown rings. I stepped nearer to inspect. The vessels contained remnants of fluid, or rather not quite liquid, more a viscous dark muck resembling coffee that had aged into a paste over time. 22 years, I murmured, mostly to myself. That brew's been untouched for 22 years. Miguel joined me and grimaced. That's revolting. Picture the odor if those lids came off. Yet oddly, no strong aroma lingered. Sure, the space carried that stale, sealed-up odor one anticipates, but nothing like decay, mildew, or carrion reek. Nothing hinted at an abandonment spanning 20 years. I continued shooting footage, zooming in on the coffee cups, the dust layers, and the impeccable setup of it all. This would make fantastic material for the video, enigmatic, deserted resort, everything suspended in a moment. The kind of thing our viewers devoured. Yet, as I held the camera there, a nagging sense persisted that the entire scene was profoundly wrong. I'd been at this urban exploration gig for 3 years now. I recognized the signs of true neglect. Structures crumble, elements infiltrate via shattered panes and leaky ceilings. Critters take residence, vegetation pushes up from structural fissures, graffiti artists tag surfaces and pilfer worthwhile items. But here, it appeared as if the employees had merely popped out for a break. Perhaps the elevation kept it all intact, Malene suggested, tracing a line in the grime on a lamp next to the couch. The chill, arid atmosphere that might hinder deterioration, yeah? Timothy agreed with a nod, though he fidgeted restlessly. He fiddled with his spectacles repeatedly, scanning the area as if anticipating a sudden ambush from the upholstery. "Yeah," he replied, "sort of a preserved snapshot. Ambient cooling. Likely explains it." His chuckle emerged shrill and abrupt, the sort forced out to reassure oneself that all was well. I stayed silent and kept recording. Internally, though, my mind dwelled on those mugs, the calendar marked with its crimson loop, and how every key dangled neatly from the board, untouched, as if departure had never occurred, as though the occupants lingered nearby, poised for discovery. I proposed we divide to cover territory efficiently. Logical choice. Sticking as a group of 5 wouldn't yield substantial shots. We had roughly 2 hours tops before descending, I announced. Nicole gave a quick affirmation and slung her gear bag over her shoulder. Timothy countered, tweaking his lenses once more. That tick was intensifying. Malene had already moved toward the rear lobby door labeled for the lower level. Quote 3-8, she added. Miguel hoisted his gear and trailed me to the primary stairs. The treads, crafted from sturdy timber, held firm without groans or dips, merely blanketed in that pervasive powder. Our tracks marked the surface distinctly. The second-story corridor extended ahead. That's when the oddity struck me. The passage seemed extended beyond reason. Earlier, upon arrival, I'd paced the exterior perimeter absent-mindedly, gauging length. The primary structure measured about 120 feet, roughly, yet this hall persisted onward. I muttered. Miguel was prepping his rig, verifying power. He peered along the passage. Brass plaques numbered the entries. Odd figures like 201, 205 to the left, evens to the right. Underscore, quote, underscore, 42, underscore, I advanced. The flooring, a deep crimson weave with an ornate design that might have seemed upscale back in 1987, now just evoked obsolescence. Our paths trailed visibly in the sediment. Miguel came after, capturing our progress. His lens emitted a gentle whir as it adjusted. "You sensing this off vibe, too?" he inquired. "What vibe exactly?" "Hard to pin, just like intruders where we don't belong." I halted at 207 and tested the knob. Secured. We never belong in these spots, Miguel. That's the appeal. True, but this one's distinct. I retrieved the master keychain he'd snagged from the reception area, selected the fit, and unlocked it. The space was compact, yet spotless. A lone bed with crisp linens pulled taut at the edges. Compact desk near the glass. Bath entrance ajar. Quote 48, I noted, entering. Miguel lingered at the threshold, shooting past me. The bedding was impeccably arranged, crisp folds all around. I inspected the lavatory. Pristine porcelain, linens stacked neatly, many amenities arrayed on the ledge. Underscore, quote, underscore 49, underscore I directed. We inspected around 15 such chambers, identical in condition. Beds prepared, facilities immaculate, primed for arrivals that never materialized. Miguel documented everything, yet his unease mounted visibly, breath quickening. Frequent glances back at the steps. The corridor stretched interminably. I'd stopped tallying entries, easily past 30 now, defying logic. The exterior footprint wasn't that expansive. Quote 50. Miguel ventured at 231. Quote 51. Quote 52. I replied. 233 mirrored the rest. 235. Identical routine. I began wondering if the entire level would turn out the same as I approached room 237. The key clicked in the lock, yet the door resisted more than expected when I nudged it ajar, almost as if some kind of pressure shift was holding it back. Unlike the others, this space wasn't vacant. An open suitcase rested on the mattress, deep blue with shiny brass edges, the sort folks once hauled on trips. Inside, garments were neatly arranged. Guys' attire, mainly collared shirts, trousers, and a pullover. Beside the bed on the night table, a silver watch with a dark leather strap lay abandoned. Quote, _53. Miguel murmured from over my shoulder. I stepped toward the luggage. The outfit seemed ordinary, perhaps a touch dated, but far from outdated. A subtle scent lingered in the air, maybe cologne or some aftershave. The bathroom entrance stood ajar, so I poked my head in and spotted additional items. A leather kit for grooming lay unzipped atop the sink, a razor, foam for shaving, a flask of Old Spice, and a toothbrush propped in a tumbler. The linens dangled askew from the bar as though they'd seen recent action. I extended a hand and brushed one of the smaller cloths. It felt moist, not drenched, but unmistakably not bone dry. "Henry!" Miguel's tone came out strained. I spun back toward him. He was retreating to the exit, lens still capturing everything, though his grip trembled slightly. I replied. I glanced at it once more. He had a valid observation. The wetness concentrated in the center, exactly where hands might pat after washing. I urged. He was nearly in the corridor by then. I trailed him from the lavatory but paused once more by the valise. The apparel was arranged with such precision as if freshly stowed or retrieved and repositioned flawlessly. Quote 62, I told him. Quote 63. Miguel's breaths came quick and shallow. A hint of uncanny, Henry? There's a person present, one who stepped out of that washroom moments ago. Possibly. Or perhaps a visitor from weeks back. And the structures kept it all intact. Remember Meline's point from below, the chilly, arid atmosphere. Cloths don't remain moist that long. He wasn't wrong. Still, we'd ventured this deep, and I refused to retreat over peculiar longevity, even if it sent a shiver across my arms. 5 additional rooms, I proposed. After that, we'll descend and link up with the team, but we see this through. Miguel eyed me as if I'd lost my mind. Perhaps I had, yet that defined our approach, venturing where others feared, capturing the discoveries. That was the essence. Quote 69, he agreed at last. Quote 70. We ascended to the 3rd story. Miguel's cam jostled at his side while he followed me up the steps. The planks groaned beneath us, yet held firm and reliable, much like the rest of this resort that ought to be crumbling yet remained intact. The upper level differed from the one below. Rather than simple corridors of bedrooms, a communal space greeted us at the landing's end, an lounge, essentially. A pair of sofas positioned opposite, separated by a low table. and flush against the distant partition, a massive set. Quote, 71, Miguel uttered, lowering his gear. Quote, 72. It resembled those bulky cathode ray models from the 90s, surely tipping the scales at 300 pounds. The type requiring a duo to shift and scarring floors for life. But what halted me in my tracks was the display. It glowed with interference, specks of white and gray dancing over the surface like a storm of flakes. I drew nearer. The fuzz wasn't chaotic. It followed a rhythm, undulating in swells every several beats. Volume muted, yet a soft buzz of static emanated from the audio. "Miguel," I instructed, "peek around the rear of it." He circled to the opposite side as I fixated on the glow. The pattern persisted, repeating identically, trapped in repetition. "No electrical lead," he announced. "Well, there's one, but it's dangling free, not connected to any source. I assumed some auxiliary source might sustain it. Lodgings often wired critical gear to failover systems. Perhaps this unit tied into a persistent supply enduring the decades. But even in my mind, the idea rang hollow. No reserve holds out for 22 years. And this wasn't vital gear. Just a lounge telly for visitors. Quote 77. Miguel returned. Quote 78. Spot on he was. I recognized the truth. Yet the set undeniably operated. The snow-like interference continued to flicker across the display in its mesmerizing rhythm. I extended my hand and pressed it against the screen. It felt heated. "Perhaps electricity is still flowing somewhere on this level," I suggested. "It might be wired to a separate breaker from the rest of the structure." Miguel dismissed the idea with a shake of his head. "We flipped all the breakers below, don't you recall?" It was completely dark, and check this out. He gestured toward a table lamp beside one of the sofas. "It's off. So's that ceiling fixture." I scanned the lounge space. He had a point. No other devices were powered. Only the television. Only this inexplicable set broadcasting noise without any connection to a source. "All right," I conceded. "It's strange. We capture strange. That's our job." Miguel hoisted his camera and began recording the set. I moved toward the far side of the lounge. Additional seating, a shelf lined with outdated periodicals, Reader's Digest, dated 1995, a Newsweek issue from January 1996. That's when the silhouette caught my eye. It was a fleeting sight, a motion at the edge of my vision. A figure crossing the corridor junction behind our position, clad in what appeared to be a vivid blue and yellow puffy ski jacket, the bulky style popular in the 80s and 90s. I whipped around, but Miguel had already pivoted, camera in hand, attempting to track the motion he'd noticed as well. The passage stood vacant, stretching dimly with rooms flanking either side, mirroring the layout from the level beneath, yet utterly deserted. No presence whatsoever. "Spot that?" Miguel murmured. "Absolutely," I replied. "Individual in winter apparel." He inclined his head, camera trained on the barren corridor. His grip trembled slightly. That blue and yellow coat strolled by as if they belonged here. I approached the junction and peered in both directions. The hall extended evenly on either side. Doors spaced about every 10 feet along the walls. All shut, all silent. The flooring bore our dust-tracked impressions from ascending the staircase, but nothing more. No evidence of other footsteps prowling this area. Probably just illusions from the light, I ventured. Sunlight filtering through a pane. Perhaps. Miguel dropped his camera. That wasn't an illusion, Henry. That was a human in a ski jacket. As I opened my mouth to counter, the radio on my hip buzzed alive. Timothy's words emerged, but warped, as if muffled by liquid. Henry, Miguel, listen up. The transmission dropped briefly, then resumed. Those game cabinets in the basement, they're active. I snatched the device from my waist. Active how? Active as in operating solo. Pac-Man is cycling through levels right now, untouched by anyone. The connection deteriorated further. Timothy's tone wavered. High scores dated January 23rd, 1996. Then Maline's transmission broke in, sharper than his, though still echoing oddly. Henry, I've reached what seems like employee dorms. A TV dinner's on the counter. Salisbury steak remains ice cold, as if freshly removed from the freezer. Miguel and I exchanged glances. The television hummed on behind us with its baffling display. Nicole's voice followed, elevated and fearful, unlike her norm. What happened to the group? I was exploring the dining section moments ago, and now Timothy and Maline have vanished. Anyone copy? That snapped me to focus. Nicole didn't rattle easily. If she was unnerved, trouble loomed. All teams, converge in the entrance hall, I broadcast. Immediately, abandon your posts and regroup downstairs. The device hissed with confirmations. Timothy's garbled reply. Maline affirming her dissent. Nicole expressing gratitude for the response. I turned to Miguel. He fixated on the TV's persistent noise. Let's get out, I stated. He agreed and slung his gear over his shoulder. Smart move. Yet as we turned toward the staircase, unease gnawed at me. We weren't solitary here. That figure in the blue and yellow jacket lurked from a shadowed threshold, poised until our exit, resuming their vigil after 2 decades. We descended the steps. I tallied them instinctively. Filming sites sharpen your awareness for such details. 1 set, 2 sets, 3 sets. But the descent persisted. I halted at what ought to have been the base level and surveyed the space. Another duplicate platform. Identical timber walls, matching brass lamps. Miguel panted at my rear, his kit clinking rhythmically. We're at 4 levels, I noted. Huh? Miguel glanced upward from my trailing position. Impossible. We ascended only 3. I persisted in my count. 5 levels, 6 levels. Every platform replicated the prior. It's impossible, Miguel muttered as we. It's impossible, Miguel muttered as we hit what felt like the ground floor at last. His words bounced oddly off the stairwell walls. I shoved the door open and froze. The lobby was off, not just altered, but inverted, as if a photo had been reversed. The burgundy couch occupied its usual position, yet it pointed the wrong way. The stone fireplace had shifted to the left wall from the right. The real desk loomed on the far side, exactly where I'd sworn a grouping of armchairs had been. Above it hung the pegboard crammed with room keys, though the numbers appeared reversed in some eerie fashion. Miguel had the camera rolling. Smart move. I should have grabbed mine, but I was fixated on the furnishings. All the pieces were present, merely reflected, as though we'd stepped into a twin dimension of the space. I made for the entrance. This had to be a trick of the light or some disorienting effect. Perhaps the stairs had spun us about, spitting us out another exit. The brass knob refused to budge. I yanked with more force, jiggling it every which way. Zilch. It felt immovable, fused in place like welded steel. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore, 83, underscore, underscore. He lowered his camera and seized the opposite side. Together we heaved. The door held fast without the slightest give. It wasn't jammed, bolted, or barricaded. That's when my gaze drifted to the windows. No lot for cars, no drive of gravel, only trees. Thick woodland crowded flush against the panes. Limbs scraped the glass. Towering pines obscured nearly the entire sky, as if the structure had been plunked amid untamed forest rather than that wide valley clearing. Quote, 84. Miguel's tone fractured. I had no reply. My eyes locked on a trunk just 3 feet from the glass, absolutely not there when we'd crossed the lot barely an hour earlier. 85. Nicole's call echoed from behind. I spun around. The trio of them was entering the lobby via separate paths. Nicole appeared from the direction of the lower stairs location. Timothy stepped from a corridor I'd never spotted. Malene emerged from what resembled a utility passage. Thank heavens, Nicole breathed. She seemed shaken. I couldn't locate the way back up. Just endless loops. Ditto, Timothy added, his breaths coming in sharp bursts as he fiddled with his glasses. I located stairs, but they plunged endlessly downward, deep down, 8 levels before I doubled back. Malene approached our group. I descended 3 stories from the restaurant floor. Meant to land in the cellar, but wound up here. Miguel gestured toward the panes. Check the view. They all pivoted. Nicole let out a faint choke. That's not our parking spot, Timothy observed. You think? I strode to the relocated front desk on its misplaced side. Perhaps the register held clues to unravel this madness. The heavy leather volume remained, flanked by the trio of pens in their stand. The desk calendar persisted, but its page was amiss. January 1996 still, with a red-marked circle, yet no longer the 23rd. Now, October 13th. Timothy, I summoned him. Take a peek. He peered closely through his lenses. That's the current date. Sure. But the month's January 1996. I see that. Timothy eyed it longer. The crimson loop shifted. I agreed with a tilt of my head. Upon our initial discovery, January 23rd had been highlighted. Presently, it was October 13th. Identical ink, matching script, as if an unseen hand had scrubbed the prior mark and inscribed fresh. This is beyond twisted, Nicole declared. She was capturing it all on her phone, sweeping the lens over the flipped lobby. That's when footfalls multiplied, echoing from various halls and approaches. I lifted my head from the calendar. Figures were filing into the lobby. Crowds of them. They poured from the corridors our group had traversed, from the stairs we'd just navigated, from unseen portals. A dozen initially, swelling to more. All clad in ski gear. Vibrant hues from the 80s and 90s, zesty blue coats, glaring yellow slacks, bold geometric motifs evoking vintage late-show ads, the sort featured in archived resort pamphlets. They advanced in unison, not in lockstep, but with matching cadence, identical pace, uniform steps. Every head canted at the same slant, attuned to an inaudible cue. "Oh no," Malene murmured. "Oh no, oh no, oh no." The influx continued, packing the space. I tallied around 30, perhaps 40. Tough to gauge amid their fluid shifts, forming a deliberate formation encircling us. I scrutinized the closest. A lady in a vivid purple parka accented with white and pink bands. Her grin was off somehow, unnatural. Those eyes were oversized, pulled unnaturally wide, beyond anything human. Her lips formed a smile without revealing teeth, merely an arc slicing the lower part of her features. The skin seemed so sheer and delicate, almost allowing glimpses of shifting shadows beneath. Every single one shared that identical visage. The pair of enormous eyes, the lipless curve, the ghostly pallor. They positioned themselves in orderly lines, crowding the lobby area surrounding us, all oriented toward where we stood. Not a single one flickered their eyelids. Behind me, scores of them, beaming with that vacant look. Scores of them, beaming with that vacant grin, fixated on us through those elongated gazes. Utterly motionless save for the subtle rocking motion synced to their inhalations. Poised for whatever came next. Nicole's shriek sliced the air, shrill and guttural, emerging from some primal depth. She dashed toward the doorway I had spotted by the hearth earlier, assuming it led to storage or a utility space. The noise grated against my molars. True horror doesn't mimic film screams. It's fractured, jagged. She dashed with surprising speed, quicker than I'd witnessed from her before, and she had competed in track during her university years. Her crimson ponytail lashed side to side as she charged over the deep red rug. The strap of her camera pack slapped rhythmically against her side. "Nicole, hold on!" Timothy shouted, though she had already vanished inside. I fixed my gaze on the threshold she had crossed. It remained ajar, a positive sign, or so it seemed at first. Beyond lay an adjacent chamber mirroring the wooden walls and subdued illumination. It appeared to link to additional sections of the structure. Moments later, I caught sight of her via the elongated pane separating the lobby from what turned out to be a meeting space, likely the spot for registering ski classes in its operational days. Nicole was inside, but not seeking escape. Instead, she looped frantically, not a casual trot or wander, but a desperate full-tilt dash as if pursued, though no pursuer followed. She'd bolt to a far angle, pivot sharply, and charge to the opposing side, repeating the loop endlessly. Her limbs drove vigorously. Her features twisted in alarm, yet she adhered to the relentless route. Quote 103. Miguel muttered. I leaned close against the cool pane. The space featured 3 additional portals visible from my vantage. Nicole would surge toward one only to swerve abruptly as if barred by an unseen barrier. She'd attempt the next, identical result, then return to her frantic path. Prompting him to approach the entry she had taken. _104_, he declared. He seized the metal knob and tugged. The panel swung inward smoothly, revealing not the meeting area but a storage nook for linens. Pale racks, laden with neatly piled linens and coverings, a sweeper unit nestled in the alcove. That faint, starch-scented aroma of fresh wash. Timothy paused briefly, then closed it and yanked once more. Again, the same storage. Quote, 105, quote, he remarked, his tone laced with that uneasy chuckle. I glanced back at the window. Nicole continued her orbits, now staring straight at our group across the barrier. Her lips worked furiously, as if yelling, yet silence prevailed on our end. She flattened her hands to the glass from within, then resumed her sprint. It was then that a noise drew my attention from behind. Steps, but distorted, not the usual shuffle. They carried a machined precision, akin to mechanisms engaging with sharp snaps. Uniform, without deviation. I whipped around. The figures in ski gear were advancing. They had held formation in tidy ranks, but now advanced in flawless harmony. Identical gait, tempo, and subtle head lean, as though tuned to an unseen melody via hidden earpieces. The impact of their soles against the floor felt artificial, overly sharp and exact, reminiscent of puppets guided by distant signals. Miguel's equipment tumbled softly onto the rug. I turned to see him frozen, eyes locked on the oncoming group. His arms dangled uselessly, jaw slack. The device rested near his shoes, its cover displaced nearby. "Miguel," I uttered. No reaction, no flutter of lashes. He simply gaped at them with an emotionless stare alien to him. The ski-clad group pressed on, 3 or 4 dozen functioning as a single entity. Their soles struck the fabric in absolute sync. Snap stride, snap stride, snap stride. The noise reverberated against the timbered walls. At that moment, Malene seized my limb. Her grip clamped into the fabric of my coat just past the joint. She clutched my arm tightly as if anchoring herself or me. "Henry," she murmured, her tone altered, gentler, almost trance-like, as though she were drifting in a dream. "We need to hear them out." I glanced at her hand gripping my sleeve, noticing for the first time her nails, coated in deep blue polish, appearing unusually long. "Hear who?" I questioned. "The visitors," she replied. Her hold had eased, more like a light touch now, as if she were adrift rather than clinging. "They wish for us to remain. They desire our inclusion." Her words carried an echo, like speaking from deep within a cavern, emerging deliberate and unhurried. "Malene, what on earth are you saying?" "It all fits," she continued. "Our purpose here was to record, to safeguard, to immerse in the narrative." She pivoted to face me, and that's when her expression shifted. Her eyes were altering, not in hue, but in scale, expanding, widening far beyond normal human limits. The identical eerie breadth I'd observed in the woman wearing the ski jacket. Yet it unfolded incrementally, as if dials were being turned ever so gradually. "We ought to remain," she insisted once more. "We should integrate with this location, with its safeguarding essence." Her pupils had swollen enormously, appearing pitch black, and within, motion stirred. Dark forms gliding beneath, mirroring what I'd witnessed in the purple-jacketed figure. I wrenched my arm away. Malene's fingers fell limply, yet her gaze locked on mine with those expanding eyes. Her smile broadened unnaturally, not in joy but in sheer expanse, the edges of her lips pulling past their natural bounds. The ski jacket group was now just 10 feet off, near enough for me to notice their unified respiration, everyone drawing breath simultaneously, releasing it in sync, as if connected by a single respiratory system. Miguel remained frozen. The lobby for potential aids. The hearth, the lobby for potential aids. The hearth held implements, though likely ornamental. The reception counter lay too distant, but nearby stood sturdy wooden seats, robust with broad armrests and firm builds. I seized the closest one. The instant I hoisted it, the ski jacket folks halted abruptly, like a switch flipping to suspend. They lingered, observing me with their distended gazes and vacant grins. Malene intoned in her ethereal lilt. I hauled the chair to the panes overlooking the former parking area. The panes seemed substantial, yet not unbreakable. Vintage glass from the initial build, I guessed. The conifers outside hugged the glass so tightly that I discerned single needles. They shifted faintly in the external breeze. Authentic trees, genuine motion, signaling an enduring exterior world. I raised the chair overhead. _quote _113 _. Malene uttered, her voice waning, receding further. The ski jacket assembly advanced a single pace, all mirroring the identical leg, the precise rhythm. I smashed the chair into the window with full force. Shards burst forth in a cascade of razor edges. Icy gusts surged inward, bearing scents of pine and a purer note, fresher than the building's stagnant staleness. The breach was ample, irregular at the borders, but sufficient. The chill struck me sharply, crisp alpine air that seared my chest and stung my eyes. Genuine atmosphere, free of the interior's dank rot. I clutched the sill and hauled through, shards grinding into my hands. The pain from slices didn't register. The gap allowed passage, though its roughness tore at my coat exiting. I tumbled about 3 feet onto a bed of pine litter and soil, firm earth. Relief washed over me. Firm earth. The woods appeared authentic. That realization struck hard. Precisely as expected, soaring pines, dense foliage, slivers of waning daylight piercing the overhead boughs, true trunks with textured bark and authentic shade, not flattened against panes like a staged illusion. I wheeled back to the lodge and nearly collapsed. The pane I'd escaped via was intact, pristine, seamless, unmarked, as if the chair had never met it. That's when panic propelled me. No backward glances, no pursuit checks. I plunged directly into the thicket. Limbs lashed my cheeks and snagged my coat. My boots skidded on slick foliage, slamming my knee painfully. I clambered upright, pressed onward. The woodland was dense, but undeniably real. Pine resin and moist soil filled my nostrils. My breaths and footfalls echoed through snapped twigs. I reckoned my path veered approximately correctly. It had to. Our vehicle was stashed amid these woods, and Timothy's ride likely waited. It simply had to. It took around 20 minutes for me to stumble upon the service road, nothing more than a slim dirt path snaking through the woods. Yet it was unmistakably FS 471. I knew it from the deep grooves in the ground and how it bent sharply around that massive rock. By that point, my legs were trembling, a mix of the sprint and all the chaos weighing on me. The Honda had vanished. I lingered right in the center of the track for what felt like ages, staring at the bare patch where Timothy had left the car. No fresh tire marks, no dark oil spots, just plain gravel and overgrown weeds, as if no vehicle had ever pulled up there. That's when I turned and headed for the highway. It was only 8 miles away, but the trek dragged on for nearly 3 hours since I paused every few minutes, glancing over my shoulder in hopes of spotting them trailing down the path after me. Miguel, camera slung over his shoulder as he jogged. Timothy, fiddling with his glasses. Nicole, holding up her phone, hunting for a bar of service. Meline lugging her laptop case. But the road remained deserted. The highway felt solid underfoot at last. Twin strips of weathered asphalt, interrupted now and then by the growl of passing semi-trucks. I planted myself on the edge with my thumb extended until a pickup pulled over. The driver, decked out in flannel and sturdy boots, didn't pry much when I explained I'd lost touch with my group during a hike. He let me off at the Millfield gas station, the exact same stop we'd made on the drive-in, with the familiar clerk manning the counter, the usual shelves stocked with jerky and energy drinks. I dialed the sheriff's office from their payphone. Officer Espinosa arrived about 40 minutes later to scoop me up. He was a hefty fellow, probably in his mid-40s, sporting gray hair and a calm, reassuring tone that must come in handy for handling family disputes. He heard out my account without cutting in, jotting details in a compact spiral notepad and posing the key follow-ups. You mentioned the interior seemed altered. Right. The lobby was reversed, like its own reflection, and the others dispersed in various ways. We'd divided up before, but they reconvened in the lobby just prior to my halt. Halt for what? Before the folks in ski jackets appeared. Before the windows morphed into woodland views, before the whole situation unraveled, before you chose to bolt. Something along those lines. Come dawn the next day, he hauled me back to the Forest Service Road, along with a couple of fellow officers and a search and rescue specialist. I waited in the rear of Espinosa's cruiser while they debated the precise location of the resort. We located it in time. Identical valley, identical structures. The primary lodge stood just as it had on our initial visit. 4 levels of timber and stone, capped with a green metal roof, its windows gleaming under the rising sun. Espinosa snipped through the front door's lock with bolt cutters, those identical brass knobs that Miguel had tinkered with the previous day. Inside, the lobby appeared ordinary. Burgundy couch oriented correctly, fireplace along the proper wall, reception desk in its rightful place, a heavy layer of dust blanketing it all, with no imprints marring the carpet. The coffee mugs remained on the side table near the windows, their contents congealed into that stale, dark sludge. Yet all traces of our passage had evaporated. 5 of us had crossed that space, climbed those steps, wandered those corridors. We'd gripped doorknobs, inspected keys, scattered signs of our presence throughout. Zilch. Just pristine dust, untouched for years on end. The search went on for 6 hours. They combed every chamber, every storage space, every nook, shouting names that bounced back from the vacant surfaces. Miguel, Timothy, Meline, Nicole, again and again. All the panes were flawless, not a single one damaged. Espinosa double-checked the lobby windows I'd claimed to smash through. Immaculate panes, free of fractures or fixes. You're positive this was the one? Absolutely. Overlooking the former parking area. Same brass catch. Everything identical, save for the shards that ought to have littered the earth beyond. At the desk, they uncovered the guest log. That same leather volume, those pens still in their container. The wall calendar lingered on January 1996, though the 23rd no longer bore a circle, merely an ordinary box with its everyday number. No crimson ink. Miguel's camera never turned up. the one he'd let slip in the lobby as the ski jacket group advanced on us. Espinoza and I revisited that precise area, dropping to all fours to peer beneath the couch and around the furniture. Empty. I'd brought along my own camera, the one for capturing broad lobby scenes. Back home, once I pulled the files from the card, I expected evidence, tangible shots to demonstrate the site's true state. Instead, the images captured routine ruin, splintered seats, ceiling leaks, wall scrawls, the typical hallmarks of a forsaken structure, like so many we'd documented previously. No coffee mugs, no neatly turned down beds. The dust was present, sure, but it resembled commonplace grime, not the immaculate veil etched in my mind. Each picture depicted a standard, dull, deserted ski lodge. I understand their fate. I realize precisely where Miguel, Timothy, Malene, and Nicole are at this very moment. They're trapped in there, stuck in that frozen January moment where the coffee stayed hot and the keys dangled on their hooks, ready for check-in. They've become permanent residents, exhibits in the place's eerie archive. Lately, my mind keeps drifting back to those online threads Timothy dug up. The reports of hikers vanishing, folks going missing around the resort. I wager a few of them escaped like I did, spinning the exact tale I shared, coming off every bit as unhinged. And I'll bet that place hasn't budged. It's lurking out there, appearing ordinary on the surface, doors ajar, rooms spotless with fresh linens and spotless restrooms. The wall calendar might read a fresh date now, perhaps next season or the one after. But that red circle lingers, pinpointing the arrival of fresh adventurers eager to capture whatever secrets they uncover. I dwell on it often, pondering rival YouTube creators, fellow urban explorers, thrill seekers drawn to filming forsaken sites. How many stumbled on the same intel as Timothy? How many cruised that identical Forest Service route? The Lost Spaces series is kaput. Tough to produce urbex clips when most of your crew vanishes into thin air. I gave editing our final day's recordings a shot, but everything glitched out. Pure interference, garbled pixels, and hiss. From time to time, I glance at the analytics for our past uploads. Views trickle in steadily. Comments pile up, too. Folks wondering about fresh drops, more dives into derelict spots. I stay silent on all of it, but deep down, I sense Miguel, Timothy, Malene, and Nicole lingering in those corridors lined with crimson rugs and gleaming brass plaques, hanging out with the ski crowd, poised for the next wave of intruders to push past the entrance and begin logging their discoveries. Eternal visitors, stuck that way indefinitely.